everybody. How are we all doing? You've got to put your silent disco headphones on. You won't be able to hear me otherwise. So I do a little calibration test to start here, just to make sure we get some audience participation. So show of hands, who's heard of AI? Okay, that was a test, you all passed. So good, I know you're all listening to me now. So Lee Peterson, I lead the Secure WAN product group here at Cisco. So that we formed this group about a year ago. It's an amalgamation of our Meraki routing products and our Catalyst routing products, predominantly deployed in branch, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, unified branch, our approach to how we modernize infrastructure and do everything there. So now the real show of hands. Show of hands, any of out here using the Meraki SD-WAN products, Meraki MX? Right, about half. Show of hands, and keep your hand up if you also use the Catalyst SD-WAN products, the Catalyst routing products. About the same, okay, excellent. So good, I'm talking to some friendlies. I don't need to talk too slow here, which is great. And you've probably worked out by now, I'm an Aussie. Started my career at Telstra here out of uni, nearly 18 years in the States now, and about 8 years with Cisco, and like I said, for the last 12 months leading this new group. So we are very focused on everything we do in the branch. And so we think about the branch, things are evolving, things are moving very fast. And the AI question, good, you've all heard of AI, so I can talk about that, it's a safe space. But obviously AI is changing a lot of the dynamics about how we think about deploying branches, how we think about assurance of experience, how we think about connectivity, resiliency, reliability, all those things. And so there's a lot of trends that sort of underlie that. One is the evolution and the prevalence of the all wireless office, right? We're not running, and the all wireless branch, we're not running Ethernet to everything like we may have 10 or 20 years ago. We've seen workloads have a massive shift to the cloud, although we would argue that there is a little bit of a repatriation going on with that right now as we start seeing more of these very expensive, very heavy DPU type workloads that are very expensive to run in neo clouds or in hyperscalers, a little bit of a mix of investment and folks onshoring and repatriating some of those workloads into their own data centers for cost effectiveness. When we think about the branch, we could be talking hundreds, thousands, sometimes 10,000 plus locations. Clearly you don't have 10,000 IT people in each of those offices. So our ability to build and to operate at a scale where you can do this in a no-touch, low-touch way is super important, and it underlines a lot of the investment and a lot of the way we try and bring technology. And then the final piece we're seeing, particularly in the US, particularly sort of driven by federal government mandates around cybersecurity, post-quantum cryptography. So another show of hands here, anyone thinking about post-quantum crypto as they think about their investments? Yeah, all the financial services guys put their hands up, right? So the evolution of quantum chips and their ability to do massive parallel workloads will undermine a lot of the security techniques we use today to secure things like VPN, to secure things like data, to secure whether in device or at rest in storing. So it's a big element in driving a lot of the change and a lot of the evolution needed in products here. So for us, we looked at what is the best way we can approach this as Cisco. How can we help you, our customers, you, our partners, be ready for all these things that are happening, all this evolution, all this change that's going on in the branch right now. So you'll see us think about this in three different areas, and I'll cover all of these today. First off, what we do from the Agentic Ops perspective and how we use AI and embed that within the experiences to make that better. What devices do we need? How do we put the right devices in the right location, whether that's in aggregation sites, campuses, data centers, or at the edge in the branch? And then finally, how do we think about security, right? Every networking operator I talk to now, if I say, what's your number one concern? Security is usually the top one. If it's not the top one, it's generally the second. So even though we may still talk about a SecOps and a NetOps user, the coming together of those worlds and the need for them to be aware and to be across each other is super important. So one thing I want to get across for my Catalyst users, my Meraki users, is that we are invested in all the different modalities, all the different ways to deploy and operate. So on-prem is super important to us. Again, my financial services friends in the room, sometimes there is a requirement for regulatory reasons to create air-gap solutions, and on-premise is the only way to achieve that. So absolutely still very invested and very involved in that. We see an evolution of hybrid solutions. So maybe that is, I want on-prem for my WAN, but I want cloud management for my LAN. That's very common. Or maybe I want on-prem for the control plane, but I'm happy to let some of the management data from an analytics perspective, from an AI perspective, be tethered to the cloud. And then of course there's the cloud, the more sort of SaaS, the more sort of modern way to operate. So each one of these is perfectly valid. We don't think of the cloud as an inevitable journey everyone is on, because a large percentage of our customers are on-prem and will be always on-prem, given the environments they operate in, given the regulatory requirements. We do tend to talk about the cloud a lot though. We see it as the right choice for most customers if we're trying to capture as much as the bell curve, but like I said, on-prem still super critical, super important. Now, that will come to bear as I talk about some of the device investments and what we're doing from an operating system perspective there. So we launched this week and last week what we call the unified branch approach. And so there's a few different layers to this. Firstly, another show of hands, Cisco validated designs. Has anyone heard of, anyone use those? Great, okay, about maybe 20% of the hands here. So educate a little bit on that, and hopefully this is something that helps you. So a Cisco validated design is essentially a blueprint. How do I do something? So in our case, we have a ability to say, here's what a branch looks like, and I'm the leader for the routing product set, but I care a lot about what goes on from a switching, a wireless, an observability, and an overall platform perspective. So this is very much about how do we invest here, how do we make sure that we've got the full stack of products that you can manage there. We wrap that with, from the validated design perspective, we wrap that with the way you interface. And there's two modalities for that. One is that you use something like Terraform as an infrastructure as code. I won't talk about that too much now. I've got a great demo that shows what that looks like. The other is that you can use it natively within, say, the Meraki dashboard, where you can use the AI assistant to say, hey, I want to deploy 10 branches. And we use the assistant to say, here's a set of configuration parameters we recommend based on the type of deployment that you're doing. And would you like to execute that? And we then use the workflows engine within that product to go execute that and show you how that's been deployed. Was it successful? Did it take? Was there any problems? Any security risks you need to be aware of? Anything like that. So different ways that you can do this at scale, whereas in the previous world, you had to do a lot of that manually on a site-by-site basis. We can at least now look at how you can do that at a much greater scale. And I said 10 sites, it could be 100 sites, it could be 1,000 sites, making that much simpler, much easier to deploy. And then, of course, the management plane matters a lot as well. So the management plane becomes a common place where you have obviously some sort of UI you can interface with, a common set of APIs I can use to address and talk to these devices, and that's where the Terraform infrastructure as code interfaces as well. And of course, the layer where we apply our assurance tools, looking end-to-end visibility from what's going on within these networks, and then also owned and unowned infrastructure there as well. And when we think about agentic ops, we think about AI, we have to have a management plane to apply that across switching, routing, and wireless. So in a bit more detail here, I'm going to show this demo in a moment as to what this looks like, but one of some of the components that we launched as part of this unified branch, I mentioned this, the validated design. The other thing we did is the way Terraform works is you publish these things called Terraform providers. We have published a first-party, fully supported Terraform provider, completely open source. You can go pick that up and start messing around with it now if you want to experiment with it. But you can also, there is a CX service we wrap around it. They have a services as code, so if you want some help with that, we have a service we can offer there to help make that part of your operations, embed that into how you deploy, how you manage, and how you operate your branch networks. And so it's very all-encompassing how we do that. We've also got Git in GitHub. We've published some code snippets if you want to start playing with it. So I say that every tool is there, whether you want help or whether you want to figure it out by yourself, a lot that you can do that. So I'm going to switch over to the demo here. So infrastructure as code, the whole purpose and the idea is this, is how do I automate operating at scale? So I mentioned Terraform. Terraform has been an approach that's been used in data centers for a long time. It's not a new technology, but applying it in this branch application is somewhat new. We're sort of the first to try and do it at this sort of scale. But essentially the idea is taking configurations and expressing them the same way we do software. And there's a lot of power in that. One of the things is that the nature of formatted language like this, and things like XML to express this, it's a formatted query language that's designed to be able to have a very structured way that you define how configuration looks, and to be very easily manipulatable. That's a very hard word to say. So what that then allows me to do is that I can then make changes and use a standard continual integration, continual deployment pipeline the way we plan, deploy, and manage software code, exactly the same way. So from here, I'm in GitLab. I can see the configuration there. And in this case, what I want to do is I've got 3 branch locations. I want to deploy 5 more. So from here, I switch over into where I actually make the edits. So I go in and actually add the code snippets for, here are the extra configurations, the extra sites I want to configure. And like I said, you can trigger this from within the UI, or you can do it in this code, this managed sort of way through Terraform. From there, I actually commit that. Again, the same way I commit software changes. That then allows me to have control over who approves it. I don't want anybody coming in and being able to mess with this. I want to have role-based access, permission, who can deploy it, who can approve these changes. I'm able to then go see that this is running, and we can see the full workflow that operates here. And once that's successfully executed, I can flip over to the dashboard and I can see now I've got 5 new sites deployed. Now that's what we call logical deployment. What that would allow me to do then is, say I had 5 locations I wanted to deploy in a night, I send the crews out there to do the install, no hands on keyboards. I don't need to send an IT operator. I send folks that understand low voltage cabling. They understand how to bring in and terminate DSL or cable connections or fiber connections from the service provider. And it's essentially plug and play at that point. So every second you save, every minute you save on those deployments at scale, again, when you're in the thousands of sites range, equals millions of dollars saved over the duration of a year. And what this then gives me is that's the day zero and the day one operations, but allows me to keep those configurations consistent, make sure there's no config drift, and keep things predominantly secure. Security is the main thing that we want to do this for, so we don't get disparity in different sites being deployed different way, which creates security vulnerabilities for us. Okay, switching gears to some of the devices that we've just launched to support all of this. So again, for our Meraki and our Catalyst crew in the room, we've brought those together. So like I said, I lead a product management team that consists of historically the Meraki products, so the MX, the MG, the Z series products. I said Z series products. I should localize that for you. And the ISR, ASR, and the Catalyst 8K products. So within that, anything you do today with any of our products is going to continue into the future. We're not taking anything away. Big investment in bringing features to iOS XE. And a lot of our customers that buy iOS XE based devices just say to me, hey Lee, I just need the CLI. I know how the CLI works, just give that to me. But we want to do that in a way that we have optionality around management and converging those products where they can be managed by the cloud as well. From an MX perspective, the MX is going to continue to have investment, so we'll have two operating systems that we have within this new portfolio that I'll talk about in a second, how these converge. And one of the things I've been able to do in the 12 months in the role is be very focused on, I have a service provider background, I come out of Telstra, I've worked with a lot of service providers, a lot of major enterprise accounts around the world, and I know what it is when we say it needs to be carrier grade, I know what it means when we say it has to be enterprise scale. We're investing in features that are going to provide a richer set of routing features in that platform. So think of things like having a third WAN, and in some cases a fourth WAN, be able to convert LAN ports to WAN. Things like VRF support, things like a more richer set of BGP options to be able to configure. Things that allow us to operate in a scale. Where these converge though from a hardware perspective, if you look at our product portfolio, back in June at Cisco Live US, we launched the 8000 series secure router. So that will be the branding for all our new products, they'll refresh into that. What we'll do is we'll have an XE persona, an operating system in that product line, and we'll have an MX-based persona and operating system in that line. And I'll get into some detail here on how that actually shows up. So starting with the first round, we launched 12 new SKUs, a complete refresh of the product lineup, which are the XE-based platforms. And so some things I want you to know about that. There is a generational improvement that comes from us in moving from previous generation products to new generation products. And you would hope that's the case, but absolutely more performant, absolutely more on par with what some of our competitors might do from a throughput perspective, particularly when looking at security services. We built this around what we call the secure networking processor. So we have an ASIC in this product. Its sole purpose in life is to accelerate cryptographic workloads. That means I can run firewalling services at a much greater speed. That means that I can do IPsec tunnels at a much greater speed. So much more performant in general from a box perspective, and that clearly impacts when we look at this from a price performance perspective as well. I mentioned cloud. So the convergence point for us in this portfolio is bringing these XE-based routers onto the Meraki dashboard. So you can look at what we've done with the switching product line, where it went from monitoring to management. We're hoping to jump straight to management of these devices so that we get to a point where, irrespective of whether it's an MX device or an XE-based router, I have parity from a management paradigm through the dashboard, which means I get access to those APIs, I get access to all those sort of pieces of tooling you get from the cloud. The other thing we did for any of the XE users in the room, any of the Catalyst 8K ISR users, we massively simplified the licensing. So bandwidth tiering is now gone. There's a single license for this. The security license is no longer something you have to buy in order to run IPsec. And we've also taken when you buy this product, we embed an OS license straight into the product, so you get a perpetual right to use this product. If you just want to operate at a CLI, you don't need support, you don't need those SD-WAN services, you don't need RMA services. Those are all completely optional. So we want to make this very frictionless and very easy for operators to pick up and be able to use, and for customers to be able to deploy in their networks. And like I mentioned, full refresh of the product line from the 8100 through the 8500, and as we refresh the products, they will all fall under this 8000 series secure router branding. Now, the MX products. We launched our first version of the MX under this product line just last week as well, the 8455-MX. So anyone familiar with the ladder, the product ladder from a Meraki perspective, the top product right now is the MX450. This would have notionally been the MX650. So what it is it's our most performant box, 2 to 3 times more throughput than you get in a 450, a great choice for running in VPN concentrator mode, running in aggregation sites, terminating SD-WAN tunnels, or running as a campus router as well. So very excited about this product, a lot more performance underlying. And like I mentioned, those improvements we're making around extra WAN ports and enterprise routing features like VRFs. The objective is not to build every routing feature that XE has, but we will continue to invest and build more enterprise features, bring more enterprise features to this operating system. The eventual aim would be when we have an XE router on dashboard, if there is a feature you need that's in XE, having the ability to instantiate CLI from the cloud, so you can go configure that on an individual device, but also to be able to do that at scale. Because we won't productize every single feature in an XE router because it's immense. We invented new features and new protocols and new ways to do things in those routers, but anything you need to access through the CLI will be possible via the cloud as we converge these from a management plane perspective. And then finally, like I said, we care about the full branch. So the WAN edge is very important to me, selfishly, but we need to make sure that from a Wi-Fi perspective and from a switching perspective, we're making the investments and we're getting the full set of things that you want to deploy in the branch into a single platform. Increasingly, when we talk to customers that deploy at scale, they don't want to have separate operating domains between each of their products. You need to have it in a single management plane. Otherwise, when there's a problem, it's impossible to troubleshoot. You're switching between different user interfaces. You can't zero in on where the exact problem is. And then finally, I wanted to talk about security and how we think about that. It's very important to us. So 3 layers of security here. I talked about the post-quantum cryptography. So this next-gen product is what we call quantum ready, meaning that when a quantum chip emerges, and very ambitious people think maybe that's 5 years, some think maybe 10 years, but there's an inevitability to a quantum chip, the ability to massively parallel process data that will essentially obliterate any of the technology we use today to secure this data. When that comes out, these devices are ready for that. It starts with, why do we call this a secure router? It starts with securing the device. So we do what we call quantum safe secure boot. So that means that I can't compromise the code on the device and sideload my own code or sniff traffic as it passes through these devices. It extends to what we do from a network connectivity perspective. So our IPsec tunnels, our SD-WAN, any of the VPN technologies we use have to use stronger ciphers, have to have quantum safe key exchange. We'll do that within our management plane. So PSKs that are able to rotate through those. And then finally, firewalling services and securing essentially the applications and the users that exist on the LAN that have to get onto the WAN. And that's an interesting point, that where we think about that is that when we look at the branch locations now, there is less users with browsers, things like phones, things like laptops, things like iPads. More of the devices are headless. They're OT devices, and having a consistent way to secure those and be able to identify those, and that's where the zero trust network access comes in. So we work very closely with our security group to ensure that we've got a common way that we think about how we apply security in the network, how we do centralized policy distributed enforcement. So you'll see more investments there. We want to make sure that you can define the policy once, and whether it's deploying to a secure firewall, to a network device, whether it's running XE or MX, whether it's deploying to a third-party firewall, or it's deploying to our SASE cloud, that we have a great way to do that. So I have the distinct pleasure of bringing a special guest up on stage with me. So Westpac has been a long-standing partner of ours, and we've worked very closely with them on a lot of things. I didn't know this until I did this research, but Westpac is not only the oldest bank in Australia, it's actually the oldest company in Australia, over 200 years old. So a lot of legacy and a lot of heritage there. But a lot of what Westpac is doing and what we like to work on together is how do we help Westpac's digital-first strategy apply into this world that's evolving very fast. We think about AI, we think about big data, we think about how we do observability, assurance, and automation. We've worked very closely on how we bring that to bear, and I'd like to invite Wayne Bonnet from Westpac to come up on stage and talk a little bit about what we're doing there.
Thank you. Hi, Lee.
We've got some comfortable seats here for us.
Oh, great. Thank you. Cheers.
So, Wayne, thank you. Why don't we start with maybe a little bit of introduction to you and your role at Westpac?
Sure. Yep. Wayne Bonnet. I run the Secure Network Services team at Westpac. We look after all connectivity for the bank, both domestically and internationally. We also run the observability function for the bank that covers both applications and infrastructure.
Amazing. So let's talk a little bit about just when you look at your infrastructure, you look at what you do from a branch deployment perspective. What does that look like? What sort of challenges do you face?
Sure. So we support around 550 sites. We're always adding new devices and capabilities into the sites, things like security cameras, more voice and video capability. So there's always new demands for extra capacity across the network because of that. We also are very focused on reliability of the sites. And customer expectation is no longer 5 nines like it used to be many years ago. The expectation is we have 100% uptime. So we're very focused on that and the resilience that we can get out of the technology.
Yep. So as you think about the journey you've been on, connectivity, how has that evolved and how has that changed the way you approach the branch?
It's changed a lot. I'd say 6 years ago, when I started in the role, we had a 10 meg MPLS link. We probably used about half the bandwidth there. We then increased that to be dual carrier 100 meg links over fibre with a 4G backup. And we thought, that's going to serve us forever. And we just increased all of those sites to 250 meg dual carrier links and about to deploy 5G as a transport backup there as well. So, and then from a Wi-Fi perspective, we're on Wi-Fi 6. So next for us is Wi-Fi 7. Next year, so in 2026, we're going to upgrade from the ISR 4Ks to the Cisco 8200 secure routers. So
you're getting the full name correct.
Yeah.
You practice that many times.
It's good to remember. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when you go, the 500 sites, what does the deployment look like? How do you typically do that? In the dark of night, ninjas drop in and deploy this stuff. How does your team go and get these things connected and up and running?
Yeah, we do it in a fully automated way. So we obviously have people on site to connect the devices. All the configurations are pre-done, and they get the configuration gets pushed down to the devices through automation. So yeah, it's a highly automated, very efficient approach. We've done it a few times now. So yeah.
What does your deployment window look like? So how many hours do you budget for a team to get
I think
branch done?
Probably we can generally hit around 50 branches in a week.
Wow.
Is our record. So yeah, the next deployment, we'll see what happens. We kind of anticipate it's going to take us 12 months to get through the sites, but yeah, that's the cadence that we've hit previously.
So then as you think about, you're adopting the new 8200 secure router, using SD-WAN technologies, how do you think about that? What sort of business outcomes do you drive and what drove you to choose that set of products and that set of overlay technologies from Cisco?
I think when you're buying hardware, we always look how the device is going to service over a 5-year period. So the asset life is that time. So we've always got to look ahead for that period, see what new developments are going to come out in that 5 years. I'd say, from a security perspective, being aware of, post-quantum cryptography has been really important to us. I wouldn't want to bet that someone's not going to crack the quantum problem in the next 5 years.
Yep.
So when we made the decision with the devices and with Cisco, that was very front of mind and really key to it from a security perspective. So.
And then you think of other bad actors. I talk about the almost like the renaissance from a cybersecurity hacking perspective. We've got vibe coders, we've also got vibe hackers out there. I think that the barrier to entry to somebody to do terrible things using AI to supplement these attacks. So how do you think about securing the branch, securing the data and the applications that you run over these networks?
Yeah, I think the ability to respond very quickly is really important. So if there's a new vulnerability that comes out, we automate those deployments. It's not uncommon for our team to update 500 devices in one change. So we use CI/CD pipelines to do that, and automation's really key to how we manage all of that infrastructure and really important to us. We probably do around 1,000 changes a month, and we currently track about 30% of those changes fully automated. Obviously, we want to take that a lot further in the future. There's a big drive to do that because of the efficiency, the reliability that we get from doing automated change. So.
So operating in a highly regulated industry like you do, a lot of regulatory oversight, how do you use the technology and the tools to comply and make sure you stay in front of that?
Yeah, it's become increasingly important that we maintain all of our infrastructure. So we aspire, as part of that 5-year refresh cycle, which we refer to as our evergreen model, we aspire to always replace devices before they reach an end of vulnerability support date.
Yep.
And we feel that within that 5-year period, we're in pretty good shape to do that.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. And then you talked about infinite nines availability. How do you look at that from an assurance perspective? What do you bring to bear to make sure your applications are running, that your users are getting the experience they expect?
Yeah, I mean, having the observability function sit within the network space as well is very helpful for that. We're a heavy Thousand Eyes user or customer, and we use that specifically on the WAN to monitor the overlay and the underlay, and it's on many occasions found or proven that we've had a carrier make a change, especially on the international network. Yep. They've made a change to divert traffic through another location, which has increased latency. All we've seen before we've looked into Thousand Eyes is the application performance decrease. Yep. So having that clear telemetry and visibility through Thousand Eyes has been really helpful.
Well, final question, Wayne. I thank you for appreciate you taking the time here, but what do you got planned for the future? Anything you're particularly excited about as you look out into the next 5 or 10 years from a network perspective?
Yeah, so in the next 12 months, we'll be doing the branch rollout. I think a really important point with the rollout was, and something that our team raised when we were making the decision with what technology to go, was bringing together routing, switching, and Wi-Fi as one ecosystem, which is quite aligned to the unified branch approach. They were adamant, the team were adamant that needed to be provided through one vendor, because that way we didn't get finger pointing in the branches, and if we had a problem, it was very clear who we were working with to resolve it. Yep. So we're going to run hard at that in FY26. Complete the rollout. I think the other piece that we're really excited to see is where the new developments in agentic AI come in to help with operations. We have copious amounts of data from the observability platforms that we've got. We think that agentic AI is going to unlock how we use that data and how much value we get out of it. And I think Cisco is going to be part of that journey with us as a trusted partner. So
amazing. Thank you for the partnership. Thank you for the time today. So final call to action for everybody. If you want to see this in action, we have the new products and the unified branch demos just around the corner here. Look for the cycles. That's where our very retail focused type experience is. But please go check that out. And thank you everybody for taking the time. Appreciate it.